I'm creating this video to give my take on the idea of social engineering. It's a very important subject to me, and I hope I can bring awareness to the subject matter in regards to the fact that social engineering is one tactic used in fifth generation warfare. The historical subjects and events I will discuss may be fringe conspiracy theory. I'm not making this video to argue the validity of the subject and events I chose to discuss. I'm using the subjects and events to convey examples of possible social engineering throughout recent U.S. history. So when you Google social engineering, Google automatically defines social engineering in the context of information security computer systems. That's not the type of social engineering this video will address. Yes, a honey trap is a form of social engineering that exploits human emotion, specifically trust, romantic desire, and seduction. A honey trap is a deceptive entrapment tactic often used in espionage or blackmail, where an individual uses romantic or sexual seduction to manipulate a target into acting in a compromised manner. So a entity chooses a target, sends a honey trap, male or female, adult or minor, to compromise the target. The target, in essence, becomes a puppet for the entity. Social engineering. Now here's another type of social engineering. The theory that gangster rap was used as a tool of social engineering to feed the prison industrial complex is a prominent, largely conspiratorial narrative that suggests a deliberate systemic effort to criminalize black culture and maximize corporate profits through mass incarceration. You can pause to read the rest. Corporate links and conflicts of interest, social engineering and cultural impact, the prison industrial complex. Contextual factors, rise of the carceral state, deindustrialization, counter arguments and perspectives, cultural expression, popular demand. Here's Ice Cube's take on the subject. Mr. Got it bad because I'm brown.
Same people who own the labels own the prisons. So
Literally the same people?
literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons. The records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't. You know, some records are made by committee. Meaning record company guys sit around and tell the artists, this is hot, say that, do this. We're gonna have this guy write the lyrics. We're gonna have that. So the narrative is really kind of, you know, structured and really made into what the record company want the record to be.
So I got to thinking, social engineering, isn't that a tactic used in fifth generation warfare? I then Googled what is fifth generation warfare. This is what it says. Fifth generation warfare is warfare that is conducted primarily through non-kinetic military actions such as social engineering. It is a decentralized type of warfare where the lines between the war and peace combatants and civilians has been blurred, targeting the human mind. There at the bottom. So how long has this possibly been going on? David McGowan wrote a book, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, Laurel Canyon Covert Ops, and the Dark Heart of the Hippie Dream. In his book, McGowan explores the dark, mysterious, and often sinister underbelly of the 1960s Laurel Canyon music scene in LA. It details how famous rock stars, military intelligence, and cult leaders intersected in a supposed utopia. Covert connections. Laurel Canyon was heavily involved with military intelligence and political figures. The book posits that the Laurel Canyon scene was more than just music and flower power, but rather a carefully manufactured cultural phenomenon with sinister behind-the-scenes actors. Based on McGowan's book, the 1960s Laurel Canyon musicians had suspicious ties to military intelligence. This includes Frank Zappa, Jim Morrison, Chris Hillman, John Phillips, and Brian Wilson. David McGowan's book argues that the concentration of such individuals in one location was not coincidental, suggesting a potential intelligence community operation to influence or monitor the counterculture movement. That brings me to the Tavistock Institute, established in 1947. The Tavistock Institute of Human Relations is a British nonprofit research and consulting organization specializing in the study of group behavior. It offers consultancy, project evaluation, work, and professional development programs based on unique methodology drawn from social sciences and applied psychology. Conspiracy theories notably promoted by authors such as Dr. Coleman and David Esselin allege that the Tavistock Institute was involved in social engineering the 1960s counterculture and manipulating popular music. Within these theories, several musical artists and groups frequently cited as being chosen or managed to influence public opinion, particularly the youth of America. Among these were the Beatles. Theories suggest they were a manufactured boy band designed to steer youth culture. The Rolling Stones, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Pink Floyd. These claims are largely considered to be part of fringe, unsubstantiated conspiracy theory rather than documented facts. Many analyses point that such claims ignore the organic, often chaotic, unpredictable nature of the 1960s musical creativity. Then I asked myself who bankrolled the Tavistock Institute, and wouldn't you know, it was the Rockefeller Foundation. The purpose of the funding was aimed to support the study of human relations and social science techniques to help society in the post-World War II era. It is worth noting that the Tavistock Institute is also the subject of various and often extreme unsubstantiated conspiracy theories claiming it is involved in global mass brainwashing and or societal manipulation. Don't worry, historical records confirm the Rockefeller Institute's financial relationship was only in the context of funding psychological and social science research. What I am gathering is there are certain entities that create popular, mainstream music by playing certain entertainers' music more often on streams and or radio.
The rival between two of rap music's biggest stars, Drake and Kendrick Lamar, is entering a dramatic new chapter. Drake's company has filed 2 legal actions accusing Universal Music Group, which represents both of the artists, of defamation and illegally boosting Lamar's viral song that targeted Drake, Not Like Us. Lawyers for Drake allege UMG enacted a scheme to, quote, artificially inflate that song.
Legal action against Universal Music Group and Spotify. Drake's complaint alleged that Kendrick Lamar's diss track, Not Like Us, gained popularity through artificially inflated streaming numbers, paid bots, and illicit promotion by UMG. Rather than organic success, Drake argued this constituted a racketeering conspiracy to devalue his brand, so Drake hit him with the RICO. Drake's lawsuit was eventually dismissed. I'm just using this as an example that certain songs and entertainers can be promoted to gain popularity. I'm not suggesting in any way Kendrick Lamar's song was artificially inflated. So back to the Tavistock Institute and its social science research. I got to thinking, is social science another word for social engineering? No, social science is not simply another word for social engineering, but they are closely related. Social science is the academic study of human behavior and social structures. Social engineering is the application of these scientific principles to accurately influence, design, or manipulate social systems and behaviors to achieve specific predetermined goals. Let's delve deeper. Study versus action. Social science seeks to understand, whereas social engineering seeks to change or intervene. Theory versus application. Social science focuses on theoretical knowledge, whereas social engineering is applied social science or a social technology. Scope of application. While the academic field has noble goals, the term social engineering is sometimes used for efforts to engineer social structures or to describe political/governmental manipulation of public behavior. Modern context is the Google definition I shared earlier in regards to modern information security. In summary, social science produces knowledge about society, while social engineering uses that knowledge for the deliberate alterations of societal patterns. This brings me back to the 1960s counterculture revolution poster child, Timothy Leary. I heard he was a CIA asset somewhere, so I Googled it. These are the Google findings. The first site link on my search engine result is a CIA government link that reads, How the CIA Planned the Drugging of America. Did Timothy Leary and the CIA work hand in hand to create the turn on, tune in, drop out culture of the 1960s? There at the bottom, the CIA's secret quest for mind control, so it's not surprising that later in his life, Tim Leary said the entire LSD movement was started by the CIA. The CIA had the whole global supply of LSD in the 1950s. FYI, this is where that CIA government link takes you. This document was approved for release October 13, 2004. It was published September 1979 by Walter H. Bowart. You can pause to read it. I wanted to find a copy of this document that wasn't cut off at the bottom, so I Googled Walter H. Bowart, How the CIA Planned the Drugging of America. These are my Google search engine findings. The Drugging of America full document is unavailable, but Walter H. Bowart's co-authored another interesting document titled The Invisible Third World War. And wouldn't you know, fifth generation warfare is an invisible type of warfare using tactics such as social engineering, disinformation, and psychological operations. This type of warfare is non-kinetic and targets the human mind. The term fifth generation warfare was first used in 2003, although Walter H. Bowart's article, The Invisible Third War, was describing fifth generation warfare in July 1985. So I clicked on the Invisible Third World War CIA government link. This is the 4-page document that appeared. It's a fascinating, informative read. It was a classified CIA document. It became declassified in part, and the sanitized copy was approved for release on December 21st, 2011. You can pause to read the document. I never found out with 100% certainty if Timothy Leary was a witting CIA asset, but as I mentioned earlier, later on in life, Tim Leary said the entire LSD movement was started by the CIA, and like I mentioned earlier, the CIA purchased and owned the entire global supply of LSD in the early 1950s. That's a historical fact. Now back to fifth generation warfare is a battle of narratives and perception. often invisible, widespread use of fake news, misinformation, disinformation campaigns to influence public opinion. Again, social engineering, psychological operations, even AI-powered tools for surveillance. That brings me to the U.S. war on drugs and Iran-Contra. The Iran-Contra affair is best described as a government criminal conspiracy that became a major political scandal. It involves officials in the Reagan administration secretly selling arms to Iran to free hostages, then illegally diverting proceeds to fund Nicaraguan Contras, directly violating congressional bans. That description alludes to the October surprise but never mentions the drugs. Yes, several investigations confirmed the individuals associated with U.S.-backed Contra movement were involved in smuggling drugs, including get the yayo chichi, into the United States to finance their operations. The U.S. government was aware but failed to intervene due to national security. Wink, wink. At the bottom, Oliver North's declassified diary notes from the Reagan administration mentioned Honduran DC-6, which is being used for runs out of New Orleans, is probably being used for drug runs into U.S. This entry indicates high-level awareness. Let's hear Oliver North's opinion on covert operations.
I happen to believe that this nation needs to be able to conduct deniable covert operations. I believe that this president, like all presidents, needs to have an ability to dissociate himself from those activities, and that the U.S. role should remain hidden or deniable and not be revealed. And that is, after all, the essence of those operations. Part of a covert operation is to offer plausible deniability of the association of the government of the United States with the activity. Part of it is to deceive our adversaries. Part of it is to ensure that those people who are at great peril carrying out those activities are not further endangered. All of those are good and sufficient reasons to destroy documents. And that's why the government buys shredders by the tens and dozens and gives them to people running covert operations.
During Iran-Contra, the crack cocaine penalties were drastically increased by federal law in 1986. The 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act introduced mandatory 5-year sentences for the possession of 5 grams of the hard, while 500 grams of powder triggered the same penalty. This disparity was not reduced until the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010. Fueled by the war on drugs and tough on crime policies, the U.S. prison population doubled during the 1980s alone. 1980's explosion. When Ronald Reagan took office, prison population doubled. The surge was driven by policy changes, including mandatory minimum sentencing and the federal war on drugs, not Iran-Contra or covert operations. Anyways, the greatest U.S. achievement wasn't mass incarceration, it was the moon landing. Yes, a moon landing is a powerful tool to generate national pride, serving as a unifying event that can foster patriotism, boost public morale, and foster a sense of superiority in science and technology. The 1969 Apollo 11 mission boosted American morale during a time of intense social and political upheaval. This brings me to disinformation and misinformation, which are 2 other primary tactics used in 5th generation warfare. Maybe state propaganda is hidden by a mockingbird mainstream media. Now back to the moon landing. According to Google, the landing created optimism and future growth. The event fostered a generational belief in can-do spirit and belief in the nation's ability to achieve impossible goals. Impossible goals. Let's watch the Apollo 17 space capsule lift off from the moon.
4 days pushed. Mission arm is destined. Okay, I'm going to get the pro. 99, proceeded, 3, 2, 1, ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector grid. Ag thought. Pitch over.
Roger, you have good thrust.
Okay, 30 seconds. 308 your number. Okay, coming through 1,500 feet, and H-dot looks good.
In conclusion, I'm Uncle Sam, that's who I am. Been hanging out in a rock and roll band is a famous lyric from the 1974 Grateful Dead U.S. Blues song.